anymore.
Well, we'll see where the next Battleground is going to be and whether Team Freedom can maybe turn the momentum in their favor. Again, we saw them last week. They are going to take map pick again, forcing Tempo into that first pick spot where their success has been limited versus their second pick. So BOE, very different than Dragonshire, much more skirmish heavy. If Hanzo gets let through, definitely more value. But we've seen the rise of Raynor on this Battleground. So again, last week, Team Freedom got off to a very slow start. Maybe they were just waking up. Maybe they needed some coffee. Who knows? But when they turned it on, Dreadnought, if you take away their first 2 games of the LFM series and you strictly look at the last 3 games, those were 3 impressive, and I mean very impressive games by Team Freedom.
It feels a little bit of what we just experienced in Game 1 from Tempo Storm. It feels like very much like that level of dominance was displayed. It wasn't like the, where is any kind of crazy play going on? You aren't sitting there going like, I didn't expect this and this team's capitalizing. It's just both teams are playing clean, but one of these feels like they are on a different caliber, or at least was performing in that day on a different caliber. And I find it even more interesting that this was the decider battleground for Team Freedom, kind of choosing that at the very last match against LFM in their very first series of HGC North America. To me, this screams it's a very big adjustment trying to take on Tempo Storm, saying that you in fact, are not that comfortable on Battlefield of Eternity, and we think this is the moment where we get our momentum.
Again, the rules are different on a lot of our Battlegrounds. Dragonshire, we mentioned the priority of the solo lane. While it is good to have a good solo laner, it's definitely good just to have the all-around bruiser. We're going to see the Medivh banned out, and the Sergeant Hammer, of course. Those seem like staples in this game. Medivh going over to Team Freedom seems highly unlikely. Hammer being seen at all. Maybe there's a Battleground out there, but it's few and far between right now, especially with Sky Temple banned. It's just a matter of, is Tempo Storm maybe afraid of an Abathur? They are not. They are more worried about the Hanzo potential on this Battleground Dreadnought, which is significant.
Yeah, removes are 2 major popular meta racers, right? With the Hanzo being taken off, with the Hammer taken off. We do have Valas, we do have Lunaras that could be Artanuses, but nothing too kind of premier tier 1. And then the Abathur ban out there, a little interesting. Abathur, Battlefield isn't a map we'd normally look at and scream at for Abathur to gain high value, but if you can stall it, to that first Immortal phase post 10, or at least post like kind of 8 and 9, it puts it in a situation where that mule can be very, very pesky and difficult to deal with. But it leaves open Genji.
Hey, who?
Genji, a hero we haven't seen all phase, at least so far. He's been banned every single game.
It seems like Genji is a real hero still. So he is being seen first pick, and that's generally been Fan's hero, but we know Ven can play that as well. So curious how their draft will go for Team Freedom. Do we get the Deckard out? We know Deckard has extremely high priority by a lot of players. Instead, we get a lot of fire here, because that is Blaze and Diablo, our Lord of Terror. And now for Tempo Storm, the Muradin's very appealing if you want to go that style, which we know that they indeed do, but does that fit the playstyle of a Genji team? Can you just dive in, double dive?
Yeah, this is actually already a very curious draft. Also I really want to highlight, I appreciate that we see the Diablo value coming out here beyond the objective strength, but also because we do in fact have the Genji picked up on the other side. A point-and-click hard crowd control that is dependable on like a Battleground like Battlefield of Eternity is near necessary to be able to handle that level of mobility. Obviously, though, the Deckard picked up there in the back end is going to make that lack of mobility after he shadow charges probably a little bit more concerning and maybe enforce a bunker.
The follow-up CC that we continue to see from June on every engagement, whether it was Maiev, doesn't matter. I mean, he's putting scrolls down. It is being called, it is being communicated. He's not missing the mark. Every time we see the healing reduction in there, we know Whitemane puts out very fast burst healing at times, but that healing reduction with that Emerald from Deckard with June there, it's almost like, yes, Deckard's a strong hero. Yes, he has good roots, but then do you have to start focusing on other elements of his talents more so than his kit? And I think for certain supports, you kind of have to play around that.
Yeah, no, that is very much the case. And, that you point out June's level of play, I feel like in the last game, he ended up having a lot of standout kind of individual plays that he had here. So it's going to be exciting to see how he innovates once more, because if you notice, we actually saw Stay a While and Listen used differently than it's ever been used, at least according to what I've seen so far. And he was intentionally using it on the kill target, but that is purely because they have the last right symbol lingering above their head. It was even when they were all inning a Muradin by himself, he was willing to solo Stay a While and Listen just to keep him there. So when the last rights rips, if it ends up going through and not getting the kill, it's still an inevitable death. There's a lot of cool things there from Tempo over that last game.
Well, you mentioned it last week, Yoda on his Li Ming, one of the best in the world. Extremely likely that's going to be him on that Li Ming with Lutano on the Raynor. So Tempo Storm what's going to be their damage dealer? Do we get something like a Phoenix at the back end of this? Instead of it's going to be a Greymane, which leads me to believe that will be Ven on the Genji, because Fan's Greymane
goes for the throat.
I don't know if they're... Look, Greymane's not in the top tier of the meta compared to where he has been before, but when I look at the stats and I see that as a Greymane... Oh, an Uther! That's one way to protect against the last rights and get the Genji lockdown. But when I see Greymane players, and you can average less than 1 death per game on a Greymane while continuing to get multiple kills and have that high success rate, that's where Fan lies. And you look traditionally at Greymane players, it's nowhere near those numbers. So Fan does things on Greymane that are just kind of unheard of. So it's going to be interesting to see now with the Uther on the other side. There are several save targets. Collusion's going to have to be quick on the trigger to make sure that he gets those heals. Most likely just supplying the armor. The D shield, of course, potentially there. So Fan's opportunities, he knows when to find them, but does he? Uther's not seen as much, so does it disrupt your flow?
Yeah, I mean, the Uther pick is actually, I think, going to be a long talking point over this next series, because there is a lot of really cool things that can come out with this. Number one, the harassment from the Uther, I think, is really interesting. Also, you already highlighted the Divine Shield as a response to the last rights. We know that last rights will only get shorter and shorter, making that eventually not a problem. But if we look at the composition that Tempo Storm has, 4 out of the 5 are melees. I look at this and I go, I'd rather Divine Storm. Keeping Li Ming is a cooldown-based hero. If I give her Divine Shield, unless we get a reset, she's probably not going to have that big of an impact. So I actually wonder if this is, in fact, a Divine Storm level of play. And if so, is it enough to set up the Lightning Breath into Li Ming just popping off?
I mean, it would bring up, I mean, especially when you bring Genji into the equation, 1 stun is nice. Another stun is even better.
Shout out to Benediction. We can make it 3.
I think the one thing that we always have to highlight with Uther composition, Dread, on a Battlefield of Eternity is mana retention and cooldowns. I mean, yeah. Uther's one of the more difficult heroes to manage that, and I know back in your playing days, Uther was very much, you know, one of the few main supports that we would consistently have, and none of that's ever really changed.
No, it's actually been since the very beginning of time, really. Uther has had some of the bigger cooldown-based trade-offs, and it is very, you know, kind of the like. And Divine Shield, as we have talked about already, if that is the direction they go, is only really that usable on either a Lightning Breath target or a Lightning Breath Diablo at this point in time, or a Rainer, because you always want it to be a sustained DPS. Vin here going for the cheeky backdoor onto the well already. Not going to be any kind of response here from Team Freedom to make it back. And to be honest, if you didn't already kind of expect this out of a Genji on Battlefield of Eternity and have somebody to respond to it, you're probably not going to. It's just a waste of time.
The amount of time that's now seen in just your regular casual play. Speaking of casual play, Zugrug's casually going to get taken down there as Vin's like, you know what, I'm done over here. I'm coming to get the kill. But the amount of times we see that now in casual play, the pros have definitely had an impact with those styles of well sniping.
Yeah, where we can wake up and even, you know, your solo Q wells are going to be a threat to the Genjis. It's the beauty, but also the crux, I feel like, of HGC. Teaching all the players to be able to set a solid example, but when they're that pesky and that annoying, I'm like, couldn't we have done without this one?
Well, right now, we'll see the contention. Nice follow-up right there. The healing, the armor is not enough. That's where Muradin comes in, Dreadnought, where every other warrior that seems to be at the top of our current meta professionally,
yeah,
Muradin's the only one that is really making those, outside of maybe Nanubarak, but that's more of a Korean flavor. But the Muradin, all you needed was vision. Cattle hiding just on the other side of the wall, jumps over, instant CC follow-up from Vin. Very nice kill.
Yeah, Muradin, for me, when looking at the overall meta, is very much a kind of outlier warrior as you've painted. You know, even comparative to Diablo, though Diablo is the one to see more bans and things of the like. I can't but feel like some of the talent diversity and opportunities available for Cattle, for instance, he may go full Stormbolt build, right? Yeah. That is another element that he has that no other warrior can. Plus, with the infinite scaling of damage output that he has on his Q, with post-20 rewind, he gains double the survivability and utility while also providing the damage. It's actually crazy.
So,
old Muradin used to have to go solo bonus damage at 13 to ever stand a chance at nuking anybody. But now you can just be like, well, we made it to late game. I'm probably going to be a problem.
Look, I love Arthlon. But man, he felt the effects of that rewind stacking on Braxis last week.
Sure did. Cattle was like, yeah, this is an easy answer there. I'm going to go ahead and send 1 sledgehammer your way, another over to your way. Talking about those sledgehammers, though, we do not, in fact, get the upgrade towards the race here at 4. We're going to stick with the standard, more defensive capabilities for our Cattle.
Let's talk about something else that rarely comes out. I think June might have been the only person that's done this before. He's going to do it again. Ruby at level 4. We mentioned the dive potential of a Muradin Greymane Genji. The Ruby creates several small potions when you activate that. So you throw that out there and you get several small potions. If you're afraid of getting instant blown up by a Li Ming combo or a Divine Storm or anything of that nature, all of a sudden you have insane AoE healing around that. It's AoE in a sense, you still have to make sure you're the one getting that.
Yeah, so it's actually an insanely good win harder spell. It essentially turns Deckard into, as long as the cooldown is up and he has the Mirage Cube available, he can very reliably say, here's my melees initiating, here's a ridiculous amount of healing away from me that you guys can keep going. He almost becomes, you know, I want to say like Alex Straza-esque in the fact that the Cleansing Flame as you disappear there. So I really like this adjustment considering the melee concerns we've had with this composition.
We've got an interesting start to this game, Dread, as we turn our attention more towards the mini-map because there are several forts missing now, respectively, on each side. Zugrug, he's zoned out for now. See if they can get the follow-up. There's the Swift Strike. There's going to be the stun, but the heals coming in from Collusion, keeping the team alive for now, while Yoda and Lutano managed to get enough poke down. But the fact that those camps got forts in the first 3-4 minutes, it's definitely a very different pace in this game than we're used to.
Normally when we see this kind of trade-off happening, hold on, Temple's going for a 1-4 split here. Greymane's yet to be able to join in. Zugrug moves up with the rest of Team Freedom kind of on his back here, unable to move through that choke. As you see all the Ruby potions laying on the ground, Flip is going to come out over onto Cattle.
Oh my.
He survives there with the Dwarf Toss out. The reset attempt here when it comes to the race itself, though.
Oh, that follow-up, though. The stuns are coming in. Collusion being very aggressive. I can tell you one thing, that if Yoda's level 7, both of those guys die, because Calamity would have definitely completed the kill there. And speaking of completing, we do have Team Freedom completing the Immortal phase here, as they have managed to get an Immortal in their favor. Will push down that top lane. Of course, that bot lane already taken care of. And fortunate for Team Freedom, not taking any damage on that keep wall.
Now we're going to see if Team Freedom can really get control here of this battleground now with this first Immortal spawning into their favor. What I was going to say is normally when the pacing goes fort for a fort, Zugrug starts the initiation here. You question who has the better late game, because whoever has the late game is not going to be able to achieve it, right? We've cut off a lot of time by forfeiting a fort for a fort. And if I was the highlight, I would argue Tempo maybe has the weaker early game. It's not going to be too far away for it to be a problem, at least not yet. But it could be here.
There was some time that Fan used on deciding his level 7. I was going to say if it's late game, maybe we get a Wisdom Duelist instead. It's going to be extra auto attack range there in human form. It does allow for an easier defense of the Immortal. It's one thing where when you have this style of composition, and this used to be very popular about a year ago when Greymane was still very much in the meta, but you would have this style of composition. If you would lose the Immortal, like on Battlefield of Eternity or the Punisher on Infernal Shrines, the Greymane's great, does insane damage, great team fighting damage, but the majority of its damage did come in the form of Worgen form, and so you have to see this adaptation to make sure you have the extra range in human form, because you need to keep that inner beast up to do any type of damage and defense, and so it's a wise choice here to make sure he has that tool available.
It makes it a little bit more difficult for characters like Diablo as well to understand, like, where's the proper time to force the initiation with that Shadow Charge, just not having another easy melee target where you're like, oh, well, here's the wall, here's my Q, there's a stun. Talking about him, we see one down below. Cattle able to Dwarf Toss out as the 3-man root comes in, along with the Ruby use. Notice how frequent we see June using the Ruby as a response to Shadow Charge. I also wonder, I was talking about how much I enjoy this talent and is a win harder to a melee composition. I do wonder how much June actually believes it to be purely a response to Diablo Shadow Charging and just taking Rubies on heavy melee compositions, because it pretty much immediately puts a stop to all Diablo power. And then if you Lightning Breath, you still have a lot of survivability.
I also want to highlight there what Cattle did, his positioning to attack that. When you're facing a Diablo on the other side, we've all made the mistake of going up and attacking a gate when there's a Diablo on the other side. Diablo can pick you up over that gate. If you just stand towards the north or south of the respective tower, you stay just out of flip range. We actually saw a charge and a stun in. I think they wanted to get the flip over, but the positioning that Cattle had didn't allow that. And that's one of the things that if you're playing against the Diablo, you do not stand directly in front of the gate or the tower. You stand towards the farthest side away from that gate. And that was something that, had that been different, yes, you have Dwarf Toss with Cattle, but you don't want to use your Dwarf Toss from the other side of the gate.
Diablo is the poor man's Garrosh. I think is the best way to look at that siege opportunity there. Sieging away here is Tempo Storm, though, as Heroics just picked up X-Strike along with Last Rites is going to be the option with the Cursed Bullet. You know that's a Zugrug one-shot composition. Let's see it try and unfold here. There's a lot of damage coming out. The Cursed Bullet is going to be there. No Last Rites thrown down yet as the Lightning Breath pushes back Tempo.
Yeah, there was an instant response there from Nasmus to make sure and put that down the minute that came out. So we'll have to keep an eye on those cooldowns later because it was needed, but it wasn't needed. But the minute you're in Lightning Breath, you would have to short cancel, so you're kind of overlapping your Heroics. The good thing is they still have Divine Shield available, but definitely something that they'll need to make sure and communicate going forward.
It's also going to raise, based on that theory we had before, right, with talking about the Divine Shield, how many targets are very effective Divine Shield targets. Now having Diablo without the Lightning Breath, that's 30 seconds of not a very good Divine Shield target. So Raynor and then Li Ming, only if she's getting resets, seem like very appealing ones beyond this point. And when I say that, it's just gaining a lot of effectiveness out of your Divine Shield. There's always, you know, the times where it's like, oh, I saved one life, that is game saving. It's kind of looking at, you know, what's the difference of Uther versus Ancestral Healing or, you know, kind of White Mane now that she's in the meta.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the short cooldown inevitably of the Last Rites every time you get a kill with that or shortly after you get the cooldown reduction on that. Cursed Bullet also on a 30-second cooldown by itself, so definitely a lot of threatening options towards that, so the use of that will be important. There's going to be the stun, there's the Cursed Bullet, there's the Shadow Charge, trying to get the stun in, but the cleanse comes in, hops into the bunker. That's another attempt. But again, cooldowns favor the Cursed Bullet style play there.
They do. No Divine Shield, at least not yet, and the Lightning Breath is going to be here. 15 seconds until the Cursed Bullet combo is back. Tornado will be here 10 seconds after that for June and Tempo Storm. Team Freedom still very, very heavily winning the race when it comes to this Immortal itself.
Be curious if anybody opts to go and maybe take that bottom camp. We've seen it before, but there's nobody that really has that insane clear with the mobility to get back. Blaze is your best option, but Blaze is also your bunker buddy. Still 20 seconds away for that, but see how long this stall continues. It's something that neither team willing to concede anything, and with no camps pushing, it's liable to stay this way for a while longer.
Tempo's going for a cheeky play now, trying to get the Greymane split push and try and force an answer here. The question is, do they go for the full split push with a 4-man defense or Greymane pull back? Greymane pulling back is the answer here. But his split siege, if he gets damage onto a keep, hold up, flip over onto Cattle. Nothing pulled yet from Collusion, though, who's in a bad spot here. No Divine Shield popped yet. He has to use it on himself there, along with the Lightning Breath, but Glarung not too far, and Freedom get the kill.
That's going to be the first. They also get the Immortal. Cattle trying to stay alive. Doesn't have that healing static just yet, but you can see the slow coming in from June, allowing him going to be there, but they follow up on Vin. They're going to stack their stuns. Nice deflect there. Will keep him alive because that was a full Li Ming combo looking for his health bar, unable to find it, but this is a massive shield here for Team Freedom on their Immortal.
I forgot the list, J-How. One of the other situations and targets that is very beneficial, and it's when Team Freedom or Tempo Storm puts a lot of their resources into the Uther to try and get the kill on the Uther. Divine Shield there, that's going to be a fat worth there. A lot of value out from that one, even beyond, again, some of the expected approaches to the team fight here for Freedom. But they have had a lot of control here, though not winning in kills very much so when looking at objectives and now structures. It's still 50% plus some shielding left on this Immortal. 13 talent here just around the corner.
Dread, this is where Greymane defenses do struggle. This health bar is staying mighty. The one fortunate thing is they did use that Greymane to clear out those minions, but now the minion waves are starting to mount up behind this. The shield just now fell, and you can see it's almost impossible for anybody to move in, especially with Zugrug lurking there on the Diablo.
Lightning Breath going to be used here just to, again, try and exploit a bit of the melee problem. Bunker thrown down, 4 members in, 3 now still kind of is the dance.
They need
continues.
to target the Cattle!
The keep's going down.
There we go.
Last Rites, not going to get the kill. Clutch heal coming out from Collusion last second. Glarung going to try and keep tracking down Team Freedom. Unless he can get onto a mount, though, use that on a pale horse. I don't know if he's going to be able to do so. Fan
Yoda.
Dismount. Vin gets the reset.
There's one, the D-Shield used over onto Yoda just in case there was another reset coming in, but the side steps, the cleanse, it was all there, but they do get the trade out. But for Team Freedom, Dreadnought, they got to keep, and that's a major factor in a game like this. When you lack the significant type of wave clear, the one good thing is, obviously you've got the Malthael with on a pale horse, so if worse comes to worse, you have quick rotations back and forth. But for Team Freedom, it's got to be a very positive sign, especially after the dominance from Tempo Storm in game number 1.
I very much agree with you, and I want to kind of reiterate that problem you highlighted a little bit on the Siege and kind of dabbled in a little bit there for Tempo Storm with this composition is the position they found themselves in now in the Battleground. Being down that keep is that offlane pressure is going to be a problem. On a Pale Horse, Malthael, yes, can very much deal with that, but it's still going to be very difficult. It's not your standard global. It's not your standard offlaner who can get that offlane pressure. And more importantly, Malthael is not a hero who can be split in that offlane like a Dahaka, get soak, and help you catch up in experience. He will be very vulnerable to those ganks, which is why you see Tempo often defending here as a 5-man.
It's all about the lack of range. And Greymane and Genji are great when they do damage, but getting into position to do damage outside of that, you can see Ancient Blessing use there as well, does help quite a bit in the clear department, but that's almost an entire keep gate down. And just taking one of those towers, I mean, that's a huge chunk of experience, more than a fort alone. So it definitely helps climb up, especially now if we get into those stall moments, Dreadnought could start to look towards that 16-tier talent advantage for Freedom.
Can't help but feel like Tempo Storm really has to say something about that other than that. That very much may be the game plan for Freedom. But Tempo's got to find a way to get these one-shot all-ins, right? Their composition is built to be able to get that isolation and get the one-shot, but between the bunker and the Divine Shield, they've just been unable to do so. And as we've said with that 16 around the corner, this feels like maybe one of the last opportunities. Fan gets caught out, though. Shadow Charge combo goes down, and Freedom get the first kill here of this skirmish.
Ben said, look, I see that you want to kill me, but I flow like water. That's that level 13 talent tier, getting that cooldown reduction on that Swift Strike. If you ever wonder what value looks like, that's it right there to make sure and get in and out of danger. But there's going to be the root follow-up. There's a Swift Strike. Zugrug is getting dangerously low, but getting that healing up. The bunker comes down. D-Shield was used on a target. Going in there, see if they make it out of here alive.
Oh my goodness, the bunker target is enough for them to get the kills now. Resets popping off there. 2 resets available there for Yoda. X-Strike is dropped in, no mana left. The Shadow Charge is used. June now trying to get body blocked, almost able to make it around the corner, actually keep himself alive a little bit longer, but Yoda comes in, no mana left. Curse Bolt gets popped down. Oh man, forcing the teleport there from Team Freedom. Tempo, hold on here, but I can't help but feel like that was for much longer than about anybody expected.
Look, Diablo, when you have that level, he's just looking for stuns at that point. Zugrug surviving. They went all in, and they came so close, but the minute Li Ming got takedown number 1, that was basically all she wrote for Tempo. 16 talent tier advantage is going to be here. Dreadnought, that top lane push looked terrifying, and that was at, what, level 12? Yeah. 13 at that point? And that was with a Genji Greymane in defense. Now we're looking at 16 talent tier advantage. An Immortal that has scaled even higher. The shielding still insanely high on this. That keep wall already down. We're not just looking at keep here. No. We're looking at more, and I think for Tempo, they're going to have to fight behind this Immortal.
Yeah, that is exactly what I want to kind of bring up here is Tempo, at this point, they have found themselves so much onto the back foot that they need to catch somebody off guard or get a fight away from the Immortal itself and be able to get that pick and then back up, get that free kill, which is why you see this aggressive flank there by Vin. Genji, some of the most aggressive positioning possible as a character. Curse Bullet is going to get dropped. Tempo Storm trying to force this fight here. Glarong is in fact going to go in. The Lightning Breath is used. Glarong is going to be the first to drop here for Tempo Storm. 1 for nothing here as Freedom all exit the bunker.
That Nasmus play, oh my goodness. Genji, goodbye, as Yoda comes in here and says, this is why I'm one of the best on Li Ming. You give me a target, I'll shoot. I'm pretty sure a lot of people could have hit that because Zugrug leading the charge. That peel by Nasmus, though, after that initial charge in, that was perfect. There's going to be another follow-up. There's going to be another kill. Team Freedom evening this series up, and as much dominance as we saw from Tempo Storm in game number 1, Team Freedom has said, look, we're no slouch either. We've got ourselves a series right now.
And I think this also helps a lot more when not only looking, as you said, some of the success we got out of Tempo in game number 1, and that Freedom can still look equally as dominant on the other side, but the fact that games 1 and 2 last weekend were a problem. Getting momentum was a problem here for Team Freedom, so being able to set things to even as early as game number 2, I think is very important for them if they have any shot at restoring or claiming that first place slot in North America. And beating Tempo Storm is absolutely step number 1 if they want that to be a true statement.
I think the scary thing is that once Team Freedom got that momentum last weekend, Dread, they look like one of the best teams that we have in North America, and that's where their spot is. So for Team Freedom to get back into this game, I mean, we're just getting started in this series. Things looking good and for Team Freedom there. So Tempo Storm, though, we know they love Battleground choice. We'll see when we come back, obviously, whether we will have that for Tempo Storm. Thoughts before we go to a break on how they might want to turn this around?
I think the biggest thing for me was last game they were on a Battleground they aren't very well known for, not necessarily their comfort, very difficult to out macro, and they picked a very team fight synergy-based composition. Those are some of the easiest to mentally essentially kind of diffuse as a team, right? And being like, okay, miscommunication, things like that. You know, I think that's very much got to be the mentality that Tempo holds on here after that last game. So I think they've definitely got the confidence in them.
Ooh, I've got the confidence. This is going to be a heck of a series. Let's see if that momentum continues. First, we're going to take a quick break, but this series will continue when we come back.